11. British Council present. Teaching English to visually impaired learners.
Session 2. Tools and resources for teaching visual impaired learners.
Hello, thank you very much for attending this second session of our training course Teaching English to Visually Impaired Learners. In this second session, we will talk about tools and resources for teaching visually impaired learners. My name is Elena Gastón. I'll present the first part of this session, and then my colleague Ana Rebolo will do the rest. We both work in ACCEDO group, which belongs to 11.
Session overview.
Before starting, let's make a short overview of what we are going to see in this session. First, we're going to talk about the meaning of tools and resources for our learners. Secondly, key points to bear in mind to make our class accessible. Then, tools for students who work in print and also for those who work in Braille. Then we will talk about technological resources and their possible use. We will focus on them, and then in the third session, we will talk about other kind of resources. After that, we will see some tips to manage classes with visually impaired learners. And finally, we will leave you a case study that you can make yourself and then see what you have answered wrong or right, and maybe review the presentation.
Tools and resources.
So, what do we mean with tools and resources? Tools are those machines or devices used by anyone, in this case by our visually impaired learners. It's important to know that you don't have to be an expert on them. You only need to know the implication they have in the learning process of your students. And what we mean about resources are those techniques, materials, anything a teacher uses in their class. But most important is the teacher themselves. So you are the most important part for the student. So in this session, as I told you, we will focus on technological resources.
Key points to bear in mind.
There are some key points that I want you to bear in mind when you want to make your class accessible for visually impaired learners. Of course, there are many things to bear in mind, but these are some key points, as I told you. The first one is that there is a wide range of situations, ways of seeing and visual impairments, so you need to know about varied adaptations. There is not only a unique adaptation for all, but it depends on the kind of vision they have, the kind of ways of seeing and reading and everything. The second one is that you need a multisensory approach. Even you have a student that has low vision, they need more senses, and the more senses they use to learn, the more they will learn. And the third one is that you will find students who work in print and some others who work in Braille. Some students work with mainstream letters, so both handwriting or in the computer, they use the ordinary letters you use. Others work with enlarged print, while others rely entirely on Braille. And some others you will find that mix print and Braille. So you will have a wide range of situations, and you will see in this session and in the third one how to adapt and how to search for resources for all of them.
What is Braille?
But maybe you're asking yourself, is Braille a language? Is it a touchable ordinary alphabet? What is Braille? Braille is a reading and writing system. It consists in a cell with 6 raised dots that you can read by touch. It's written letter by letter, like the ordinary print. And depending the dots raised, it represents different letters or punctuation marks or math symbols. And children start reading Braille at the same age than the others read in print, unless they lose their sight in a different age, when they are supposed to be literated and they just need to learn Braille itself. In this image, you can see a text written in Braille and a red circle pointing a single letter and another one pointing a complete word. I must say that reading Braille is essential when learning a language. Spelling, names of authors, for example, cannot be learned only listening. And it's important to know that listening should never be a substitute for reading and writing. So Braille is important, and Braille, I must say, is a right for visually impaired learners.
Learning tools for visual impairment students.
Let us now talk about tools that your visually impaired learners may use in your class. Do you know any of these tools and what are they used for? This is 1, 2, 3, 4th, and 5th. We will talk about them in this presentation, and we will watch some videos of some students using them. I think this is the best way to know how are they used and what will you find in your classes. In this slide, we will talk about the screen magnification software. It's a software for low vision students, and this is the first image I showed you in the previous slide. It enlarges the image as much as one needs, so people with very low vision can manage the computer. But the problem is that as much as you enlarge the image, the less part of the screen you see. So if you have a student that uses screen magnification software, in this case the example is Zoom Text, that is the most commonly used in Spain, you will see that they need more time to read, more time to make activities and so. You can also find students who work with operating system accessibility. All the operating systems, even if you work in a tablet or whatever, they have their own accessibility tools. So maybe with them, they have lots of possibilities, and they may change the contrast, the size of letters, and everything. The problem is that some PowerPoints or websites are not seen properly with the colors and sizes they use. And then you will find some other students who work with enlarged print text. The benefits of it is that you work with bigger letters, and it is very useful to do it with Word or any program in the computer where you can choose the type and the size of the letters, and then you print it as big as they need. But normally school text and different books are not printed in bigger letters because they are so expensive and difficult to manage. So it will not be very common that you will find students using this kind of text, but maybe you will use them by your own when you make notes or whatever. The second picture I showed you before is the voice labeling system. In this case, we will talk about Leo, L-E-O, which is a Spanish one, but you will have many others in other countries. This is a device to record labels with your own words, or maybe with a computer file, songs or whatever. And you can use them in anything. Maybe you can use them to distinguish your bottles at home, or use them to help the student to understand pictures. It reads the text out loud, and it's very interesting as an aid. but it mustn't be used as a substitute of Braille, as I told you before. Now let's watch a video in which a teacher has recorded the description of an image for a blind learner.
Como soporte para la actividad.
En esta fotografía se ve un paisaje lleno de arena, montañas de arena.
Para que el alumno con discapacidad visual pueda realizar tal tarea, debe contar con la presencia de un yo auxiliar, el maestro o algún compañero, y junto a él se ha incorporado una etiqueta vinculada a un archivo de voz que contiene la información.
La flor es el órgano reproductor de la planta.
This is the Perkins Braille Writer. This is a machine to write in Braille, like we could say handwriting, for students and also for adults, where you can write directly and read what you are writing. It is very quick and effective, but it also makes noise in the class. So if you have a student in face-to-face classes that use a Perkins Braille Writer, you will have to get used to that noise and also the rest of the students. It only writes in Braille, so the learner has to read out loud what is written if you need to correct or see what he has or she has written. Let's see now a video.
Y lo tenemos metido. Y ahora voy a escribir una frase. Ya está.
¿Qué has puesto?
Me gusta la música y estar con Tere.
Now we're going to talk about the screen readers. Screen reader is a software that converts all the text in the screen and also the images to speech or Braille. Each operating system has their own screen reader, and they have lots of configuration options, and learners need to be trained to use them because they are not easy at the beginning. I will show you now two videos of two websites using a screen reader. In the first one, you will see how a website with text and pictures can be completely accessible for blind users. If you close your eyes, you won't lose any relevant information in the screen. However, in educative websites and apps, it is very different, as you need to solve exercises, receive the feedback, etc. So in the second video, I will show you a very interesting educative website called the Free Rice website of the World Food Programme. It is accessible to read and answer the question, but the blind learner doesn't have the information about the result that is marked only with colors, and neither that the exercise changed to a new one, so they will need some help to follow the exercise. The screen reader reads out loud the words, but the blind learner doesn't notice if their answer is right or wrong, and neither that the exercise changed and restarts a new one. You will see it now, and you can make the test closing your eyes and trying to figure what there is in the screen in both cases.
Main region. Learn English graphic. British Council logo graphic. Learn English. Learn English online and improve your skills through our Everything you find here has been specially created by the British Council. Heading Level 2, we provide you with the right tools to help you interact confidently in the real world. Skills graphic. Skills. Practice your listening, reading, writing and speaking and learn useful list of 3 items. Bullet audio and video to practice your listening and speaking skills. Bullet model texts for all types of writing tasks. Bullet work on your reading skills to read more quickly and understand more. List end. Link start learning.
And this is the second one.
Fizzy. Impending. Loud enough to hear. Scared. Loud enough to hear. Loud enough to hear. Menu toggle. Banner region. Main region. Rumble means colon. Exceed. Wrinkle. Resign. Swap. Swap.
As you have seen, the things that happen are not really seen by the screen reader in the second example. So you will need to help your student or maybe look for other resources. This is the Braille display. It turns into Braille the same information that the screen reader gets from the screen. The Braille display doesn't work by its own. It must be always connected to a device with a screen reader, and it can be connected by Bluetooth or by USB. It is very useful to read and write in Braille with the computer, the mobile phone, and other technologies. And everything you write in it appears in the screen so the teacher can follow everything that the student writes. As I told you, it needs the screen reader to work, but you have an option in the screen reader where you can make it silent, so you see it without sounds, so everything can be read in Braille. And it is very, very interesting for our students to learn better any language. You will see now a video of a student using it both writing and reading.
Son amigas del colegio.
Del texto y escribe una palabra con cada.
Computer applications and online resources.
So, now we know many tools that a visually impaired learner can use in our classes. Let us talk about computer applications and online resources that we can use as teachers in our classes. So let's think for a while. What ICT resources do I use in my classes? Are they accessible for visually impaired learners? How can they use them? I may write notes in the computer, make games with the whiteboard, make posters with a specific program or other computer activities. Before analyzing the accessibility of our resources, let us reflect on the implications of a visual impairment in the resources we use. So, compared to ordinary and normal sighted learners, partially sighted can have less visual experience, and the blind has less or not visual experience at all if they were born blind. Partially sighted students will need other senses, not only their sight, because their sight can be very low. And the blind student, of course, need other senses as they don't have sight at all. The partially sighted can see the screen with difficulties, but bear in mind that the blind student doesn't see the screen at all. The partially sighted student can use the mouse. Maybe they use a magnifier or different kinds of colors and contrast, but they can use the mouse, while the blind student doesn't use the mouse at all. And the partially sighted student can use the keyboard or the mouse, but the blind student need to use the keyboard with or without Braille display. But as they can't use the mouse, the keyboard is the only way to reach the computer. So these are very, very important things to think about when we want to assess the accessibility of our resources. One of the most used resources are digital textbooks and magazines. Most of them are not accessible yet. When we work with PDFs, we have to know that a PDF made from an image is not accessible. A PDF made from text depends on the original text it was made from. A PDF made from Word can be totally accessible if they are well done in our Word editor, and Anna is going to explain you later how to make it. And when a PDF is not fully accessible, digital books can be converted to Braille or accessible formats. As you may remember, in slide 12, when we talked about screen readers, we saw two examples of non-voice guided applications. That means they need the screen reader to be read by a blind user. However, in education, especially in lower stages, we normally use voice-guided applications. That means they are made to work autonomously. That is, they are designed to be accessible in themselves. Many times they are made with natural voices without requiring a screen reader and giving the student rules and guidelines to work in it. They are intuitive for sighted learners, but normally not for low vision and much less for totally blind students. Let us now watch an example. It is a nice story game where you have to help a detective to find different things, giving you clues for it. I invite you to listen to the video first with your eyes closed and then opening them. And after that, reflect on how a blind learner could understand and use this game.
The case of the flyaway kite. Busy Bird was flying her kite, but it flew away. She needs help finding it. I'm on the case. The string broke on Busy Bird's kite and it flew away. Her kite is shaped like a diamond and has a long striped tail. That's a clue. Let's put it in our clue notebook. We need to look around here for clues.
And finally, when assessing the accessibility of any activity with a screen reader, in this case JAWS, you can categorize the activities in three types. They can be accessible, that means that the learner can do it autonomously with a screen reader. They can be not fully accessible, so the learner will need help from others or maybe from the teacher. Or they can be not accessible at all, and that means you must look for alternatives. Let us see an example of the platform of the British Council Learning Hub. As you see in the table, there are many activities and they have been categorized in three colors. The green ones are accessible, the orange ones are not fully accessible, and the red ones are not accessible at all. In the documentation you will find in your SharePoint, there is a document called Computer Applications, where you can find two annexes. One is accessibility verification list for auto voice guided applications, and the other for non-auto voice guided applications. So whenever you want to assess the accessibility of any resource, any technological resource you are going to use, you can use them. So until here, this is my presentation. Now Anna is going to take the floor, and I thank you a lot for listening this session, and I hope you will read more in the documents and learn a lot about these tools and resources for visually impaired learners. Thank you very much.
Accessible online teaching platforms and tools.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about accessible online teaching platforms and tools. That types of tools are not only for online classes, are for face-to-face classes too. So if we talk about online classes, we have different platforms that are completely accessible to our students, such as Microsoft Teams or Zoom, that are completely accessible, and our students are going to navigate completely on that platforms. You have to know that chat is going to be your best ally. There you can share all the information that you are showing on the screen, such as documents, slides, links, images, all that you are using. If you put that information on the chat, our students are going to access easily to them. Okay, remember that our students don't use the mouse, okay? They use key combinations on the keyboard that works as the same way as a mouse, okay? For example, here you have different key combinations or hotkeys that we call hotkeys that they are going to use, for example, in a video call in Microsoft Teams. I invite you to try to use it when you are on a class or on a video call on Teams. You can use that type of hotkeys, okay? And you are going to see how they work on that type of platforms. Okay, to make tests and questionnaires, Microsoft Forms is a completely accessible tool. But you have to take in account that platforms could be accessible, but activities that you are going to design on that platforms must be accessible too. So here you have an example of that. Here you have a question that we have to answer seeing the image. What are Sarah and Mom doing? We have to see the image and then select the best option. What happened? That our students can't identify what is happening on the photo on the screen. So as you can see, the cursor of the mouse doesn't have any information. How can we do that activity accessible? Let's see. Here you can see that the image has what we call alternative text. Alternative text is a text that we add on the photo to describe what is happening on the image. Okay? You can see here is an example that the alternative text is in Spanish. Why? Because it's important that the test must be in the first language of our students. Why? Because the rest of the class and of the students are taking the information of the photo with their eyes, so in their language. So our students must be in the same condition of the rest of the class. So it exists another types of application to make test questionnaires that it works like quizzes. I'm sure that you know Kahoot, that is an app where the person with the most correct answers wins, but also the fastest. As we have mentioned before, our students sometimes need more time to answer, since they have to navigate through each element on the screen. Therefore, it will be beneficial to use other, more inclusive apps. We have already seen Bamboozle, an app where the teacher can call out the answer and all the students can be on the same condition. However, there is another very fun option that is called Flickers. Let's see how it works. So Plickers works creating a code similar as a QR code that has each student, okay? The application is going to create one code per student. As you can see here in the image, we have on the corners a number and 4 letters on the sides, okay? The number is the number of the student and the letters are the 4 alternatives that the question has. Okay, so what Plickers works is that you tell a question and each student has to select one option of answer. Then they are going to show their codes and they are going to put on the top the alternative of answer that they has selected. Then the teacher with the camera are going to make a screen, and the application is going to show on the top of the screen who has answered wrong and right the question, and on the other side how many people has answered right and how many people has answered wrong. Okay, so it's a funny application and is really inclusive. How can we do our code accessible? Here you have an example. As you can see, the shape and the letters are highlighted with black marker. The letters are labeled in Braille too, and the corner has cut to identify the initial position so they can turn the code. Another type of application that we can use on the class, or at least know that it exists, are supporting apps for visually impaired students. Sometimes we can use to help in an activity our students with some types of accessibility difficulties. For example, we have Seeing AI and Prismo that are both apps that where we can read and interpret text on posters, documents scanners, scene descriptor, or people descriptions. Okay, may sometimes are useful to read documents, describe spaces, or describe images. Okay, but don't forget that we have to have accessible activities for our students, but maybe in some moments we can use it, okay? Here you have an example of how to use Seeing AI application. Let's see.
This is an app called Seeing AI. It has been designed for people that are in low vision or vision disabled, and this app does some amazing things. Let's walk and let me show you some of the things that we can do here. And I'm going to say that I want to read short text.
Your idea is because you can.
It's actually reading aloud what is being seen on that screen. The closed captioning that is coming up as it's being read, which is really awesome. The other thing I can do is I can come in here and I can say, let's take a picture of a document and save it. I can even click on a barcode and it will look at the barcode and tell me the product. One of the things it can do is it has a scene detector. So I'm going to come in here, let's go here, and we're going to take a picture of these guys.
Processing.
A group of people sitting at a table, which is just crazy.
33-year-old man with brown hair wearing glasses looking happy.
33-year-old man with brown hair wearing glasses looking happy. Sir, are you happy?
I'm very happy.
You're wearing glasses?
Yes.
And how close are you to 33? You're close enough. It identified that using Seeing AI, which is absolutely amazing.
Creating accessible documents.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about creating accessible documents. Platforms and tools must be accessible, as we have said before, but our documents must be accessible too. So now we are going to see some examples about how can we make accessible documents. So here you have, let's say, a bad example of PowerPoint slide. And I'm going to ask you something, so think for a while. How could you improve this slide to make it accessible for blind and low vision students? Okay, now we're going to talk about with details about that, okay? But you can see that there are low contrast. The background is safe, so makes reading difficult for low vision students. The arrow and the picture is not labeled or make it as decorative or with alternative text. And the screen reader is going to read literally what is written on the link. So that doesn't provide any useful information. In fact, it harms the reader. Okay? Let's continue seeing details about that. An important point to make Word and PowerPoint accessible is that titles and headings must be labeled. Okay? We have that option and we must mark that text as titles or headings. Why? Because our students with the screen reader can navigate through titles and through headings. So it's easier for them if we mark that, okay? The second and really important point is that we must add alternative text on images that we are using on our Word and PowerPoint presentations. When a student uses screen reader, the screen reader, when arrived to an image, is going to read the information that we have added on the alternative text box, okay? And we have said before, but it's really important that unless it's an exceptional activity, alternative text should always be in the learner's native language, because you are describing in the image what others can interpret with their eyes. So visually impaired learners must be in the same condition as the rest of the students. The third point is to modify hyperlink texts. Modify the text of the hyperlink so that it's only providing the necessary information. The same as the titles and headings, our students that use screen reader can navigate through links, and the screen reader is going to read literally what appears on the link. So we can change that text and add the most important information that we can transmit. Okay, and the last point, and a really, really important point, is to check the accessibility. Word and PowerPoint has the tool to check the accessibility of our presentations and documents. Use built-in tools to verify and improve documents' accessibility. Okay? Here you have the last example with the check accessibility option. As you can see on the right of the screen, we have a text box, and there we have some errors like missing alt text on the arrow and the picture, and another warnings like, for example, the advice to check reading order. So let's think for a while. Are my lessons adapted to visually impaired learners? Let's check it out. Here you have the 10 tips for teaching visually impaired learners. You can read the tips to prove that your activities and your lessons are completely accessible for visually impaired learners. Here you have 10 and I invite you to think about that missing words. Okay, let's see. The first one is the learners want to be treated as all students. The same as all students. 2. Tech adapted materials can be read with something that it calls JAWS, for example. That is a screen reader. Use something to describe images in the learner's own language. Alternative text. Learners require extra something for some tasks. Extra time. Communicative task in pronunciation usually something. Visually impaired learners. Motivated. Reading, listening, and video tasks may require breaking down into manageable tasks. Writing tasks and projects can be completed using Word, which is and easy to use. That is accessible. Send a new language record document after each lesson. Use the chat and another activity in online classes in Zoom. That is breakout rooms. And the last one is use game and make sure that they are accessible. Okay, so for finish the session, here you have a QR code that has a self-evaluation forms. Scan the QR code and fill out the form. It only takes you a few minutes. And there you are going to see 4 cases from 4 different students along with different examples of tools that the students will use. You will have to select all the tools that the student is going to use on the lessons. Well, so we are arriving to the end of the session. And here you have different information, additional information that you can use and see whenever you want. At the top, you have the links, and on the bottom, you have the different QR where you can find more information related to visual impairment and English lessons. So thank you so much. It has been a pleasure to be here and to come to transmit some information about visual impaired learners in the classroom. Here you have a link to make a feedback form that will be really useful for us, and a QR where you can see all the information about the course of the 3 sessions that we have. So thank you so much.
Credits and copyright. Copyright symbol British Council 2025. Copyright symbol once 2025. All rights reserved. This publication is for teacher training purposes only and not for commercial use. If you wish to reproduce, scan, transmit or use this publication or any part of it for another purpose, please contact the British Council for written permission. DPO Spain at British Council.es.